Let's talk about the clean air zones, Chris. There's a lot of confusion about this. People think they apply exclusively to passenger cars and that all of them will be rechargeable. That's not the case, is it?
I think if you look at the shorter to mid-term view, we have urban air quality issues that have to be addressed. This is one of the tools within the toolbox that government can use and local authorities can use to address those urban air issues. One of the issues is that people don't fully appreciate what these zones actually are, which vehicles they're affecting. In London, there's the ultra-low emission zone which comes in 2019. That will apply to all cars and commercial vehicles, and you'll need to have a Euro 6 diesel if you want to access London then.
So those clean air zones around the rest of the country, they're going to affect businesses as well, aren't they?
The majority of the clean air zones that are on the table at the moment, and we'll know shortly what's actually been agreed and what will be taken forwards. But those that are on the table at the moment are mainly looking at Class B, which is HGVs, buses, coaches and taxis.
So if you're driving or planning to buy a Euro 6 diesel, you're still going to be okay?
Absolutely, both in London and in the clean air zones. For the London zone, it's April 2019. For the clean air zones, it's got to be implemented by the end of 2019. So effectively, they're looking at starting it 2020.
Let's talk about the benefits. I mean, do you think, Keith, that there is going to be a significant benefit for communities from these clean air zones?
The main issue in terms of the clean air zones is NOx emissions.
Right.
So we do need to think about how we better understand emissions as they're happening locally and getting them better ways of measuring and monitoring that data.
That's important as well because it's about traffic management too,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very easy to blame passenger car drivers for all this when that's not the case. And just let me play devil's advocate here for a moment. What about central heating, wood burning, sort of all those industrial and domestic combustion issues as well that also have NOx?
The NOx impacts from non-vehicles is there, but it's nowhere near as significant. And also it's where it's released. And I think we'll see a lot of work coming out from government shortly about how we tackle other pollutants and particularly particulates.
You can't expect everybody to suddenly go from their current vehicle to a zero emission vehicle overnight. It's got to be understood that there's going to be a transition period. Mm-hmm. And if you're operating predominantly in an urban environment, there is now that opportunity to look at other fuel types that might work more effectively for you in that area. But I think the key thing from my perspective is not taking knee-jerk reactions based on some misinformation that's out there at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I think people have bought diesels in good faith. The government have told us that's the right fuel to go. They have the best in class on CO2. Diesels still are the most fuel efficient, cost efficient vehicles to be used, particularly on motorway journeys. We know that diesels make no sense if you're just doing short journeys, but so it's more consultative. Look at your actual business needs, where you're travelling from and to, and select the right products. Because today I think we're actually fortunate to have such a wide range of different technologies. And I think it's picking the right solution for your journeys and making sure those match.
What about this issue where we've devolved this to local councils to roll out their own clean air strategies for these towns? How can we be sure that there will be a consistency of message there, a consistency of charging and a consistency of information to businesses and consumers?
That's actually a very important point. We've been lobbying and campaigning on this very point to government, saying actually we need a national framework. We can't have one city, Birmingham, doing its own thing and you know, simply if you're driving to Nottingham or Derby, they're doing completely opposite. But it's important that the signage is clear, people understand the hours of operation, how it's going to be enforced, you know, the whole hours of operation, what you can and can't do, the exemptions that are going to be allowed. I think we need consistency.
Sorry, I think incentives is a really, really good idea. If you look at the Norwegian model, which is, what is it, 34% penetration of EVs over their car? I mean, massive. And they have free use of bus lanes, free electricity, no purchase tax on the car, unbelievable raft of incentives. And I think we could still do more.
I think there's one thing about it being led by government, but we also have to think about what we're doing as well. So if you think about fleets, particularly cars which are on fleet for 3 to 4 years, and you're talking vans, you know, 5 to 7 years. Public sector can sometimes be a lot longer than that. You're now starting to talk about a different scenario. What we can see is we're getting all these different changes that are happening, but we as fleet operators need to move ahead of the game. So you're right, clarity is needed, consistency is needed.
So let's just sum up about the clean air zones then before we move on. They don't apply at the moment to passenger cars apart from London. Your Euro 6 diesel will be allowed in. You will not be banned from cities. And if you have an EV and you have a light duty cycle within an urban environment, then it works really, really well to have an electric vehicle in a city, and you will be immune from most charges, if any charges, in the short to medium term, won't you?
Just clarify, that's just for cars. I think vans, the bit that we are still not clear. No. Vans are held on longer, as Carl's touched on, and they will be likely to be still fleets will have Euro 5, and I think it's about planning and recognising there are 5 cities that we've outlined that will be affected. Is think about those cities. If you've got high penetration in those cities, then it may be worthwhile looking at actually recycling some of those fleets into Euro 6 so they become compliant vehicles.